those visions, I firmly believe, and the events are there. But events that are found in the book of Revelation are not to give what I'm talking. We want to the people that text. It's very hard to express it in English. He's one who is constant with his people. It's the God of the past. And God who made a promise, he will be with his people always until the time of the end. So I hope that you are ready for this. We want to talk about symbolism of the book of Revelation. Let's go to the beginning of this verse 1. Yesterday, you remember how we started yesterday. He said, revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him, for which purpose? To show to his people what will take place in the future. We cannot deny this character, the book of the book. The book of Revelation, is a prophetic book. But the prophecies are not given to satisfy our curiosity about the future, but to prepare us for that future and to draw us closer to Jesus Christ. So when those bizarre and terrible events take place, that we know that Jesus Christ made a promise that he will be always with us. He will never forsake us. He will never forget us. He will be with his people always during the most difficult times of this earth history. And the book of Revelation is telling us that before the second coming of Christ, that human beings on this earth will experience those difficult times. Okay, and now, verse 1 concludes that he, who is that he? It's Jesus. He sent and he communicated it by his angel to his servant John. By the way, this is the translation of the New American Standard Bible, which is literal translation of the Bible. I wanted to show to you how this clause that this clause, the concluding statement of verse 1, contains one of the most important words in the whole book of Revelation. Unfortunately, the Bible translators, sometimes because of the different agenda, different religious background they're coming from, they don't see it. Does not fit their interpretation. They don't use it in the way that it should be. But today, more and more, the commentators of the book of Revelation bring the book of Revelation. And what is the word that I highlighted? It is related by the New American Standard Bible as the word communicated. I know that you're sitting here, and most of us, we are having different Bible translations in front of ourselves. If you have a King James Bible, and also that I just mentioned New American Standard Bible, you see, New American Standard Bible said communicated, but they put in the margin. If you want me, after during break, I can show to you the margin, or if you have New American Standard Bible, you can go and see the margin. They indicate, they said, this is the way how the word should be translated. But you see what they put in the text, completely different. King James Bible and New American Standard Bible margin, they have the word signified. Jesus, what did he do? He sent and he signified. What will happen in the future by his angel to his servant John. But many modern versions of the Bible, because so many times of the popular Protestant view what will happen in the final events, they ignore the original meaning of the word and they put the word, he made it known. Okay, so let's try to focus on this word. Because as I mentioned to you, is that this word is probably one of the most significant, I can even say the most significant word in the whole book of Revelation. So let's try to understand this word. I'm sorry now. I made decision when I'm on the pulpit. I never talk about Greek, Hebrew, and that's why our people who are in the pew, Hebrew and Greek came to them up to here. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have students struggling to pass Greek and Hebrew exams for 10 times, but they go to the pulpit, Hebrew, Greek, Hebrew. I said, why did you show it at the exam? Okay, so on the pulpit, we should be very, very careful how we are doing that. But we are pastors, okay? So we should be familiar with what we are doing. Okay, let's see how to do it. I hope that you can read the Greek alphabet today. Yeah. The word that is translated as signified in King James Bible, which is really closest to the meaning in Greek. It's the word semaino. Can we pronounce it together? Semaino. Now you're becoming Greek experts, okay? It's a verb. It's the verb. But the verb comes from the noun sema. Sema is feminine. At the time of the book of Revelation, it was not anymore feminine. It became neuter, semaion. Can we practice it a little bit? Mm-hmm. You who attended my presentation, I also talked about that yesterday here. You remember Revelation chapter 12? Mm-hmm. And great semaion was seen in heaven. You remember that beautiful woman? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay? And in verse 3, a great semaion was seen in heaven, and that's a red dragon. Remember that. Mm. So what is the meaning of the word sema or semaion? It's simply meaning sign or symbol. Mm. If you want to really to be more practical in that, if you really want, the most correct translation is a symbolic sign or a symbol. Okay. That's the meaning of the verb. Please can you help me? I don't know too much how you refer to certain things in your country. Is the word semaphore known here in this country? No. Okay. I know in English-speaking countries, it's not known. Outside of English-speaking countries, it's well known. It's international word. It's for the traffic light. Semaphore. My country, French-speaking country, the word semaphore is international. And traffic light. What you have red, means stop, huh? Yeah. You have green, go. You have yellow. If you're a taxi driver, press the pedal. Okay. So what's the meaning of the word semaphore? Sema means what? I want us to be engaged there. What's the meaning of the word sema? Sign. Symbolic sign. And the word for is for light. So what is semaphore? It's the science by means of light. The word semantics. Sema means symbolic sign. And if you take Webster Dictionary, it says sticks. Semantics. Yeah. It's old word for the text. So what is semantics? The text expressed by means of symbolic signs. You see, you say, oh, what is that? It's air coming out of your mouth. But you go and you write it. Oh, that's actually what semantic is. I hope that we see what is used by using this Greek word. It seems to me it's too loud. So the verb means symbolic sign. So what is the meaning? Sorry, the noun is symbolic sign. What is the meaning of the verb semaino? And it's something that really I would like us to keep in mind. It simply means to show, or to explain or to communicate something by means of symbol or symbolic signs. Does it make sense? Should I repeat one more time? I would like us really to keep that in mind. This is crucial of what we are talking. So semaino simply means, and this is the word that is used in Revelation 1:1. Semaino simply means to show, to explain, to communicate something by means of symbol, or by using symbol. Okay, I want to show to you how the word is used. Because of the time constraint, I thought we would have a translation again. I took a number of slides out, but I kept this one. You know that the Old Testament was written in Hebrew language, but there are two books that have several chapters written in a language different than Hebrew, okay? But in the 3rd century, on the request of the library in Alexandria, the Old Testament written in Hebrew was translated in Greek, known as the Septuagint. A Septuagint is very, very important that we understand really the Greek words that are translated from Hebrew. And here we are coming to the book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 28. You remember the king Nebuchadnezzar, he saw that statue. You remember that? The head of gold, you remember? Silver, bronze, iron, you remember? And now he comes before the emperor Nebuchadnezzar to explain the meaning of those parts of them. You remember that?
Yes.
And this is in Greek, in the translation, what Daniel said to the emperor Nebuchadnezzar. The great God had signified, as you have in your King James Bible, has signified the word semaino used to the king what come to pass after these things. What did Daniel say to Nebuchadnezzar? King, what you saw in that vision, okay, that statue with the 4 parts, with 4 metals, God used as the symbol to show to you the future history from your time on. Does it make sense now?
Yes.
Okay, so I hope that we cleared up. And this is what I presented to you. It is found in all Greek dictionaries. But when the translators come to translate it, they don't use it. They use what they want to really fit so many times their beliefs there, etc. So one more time, let's do it. What's the meaning of the word semaino? Please forgive me for repetition, but sometimes repetition is necessary. So semaino simply means to show something, to explain something by means, or communicate something by means of symbols. Can you now practice? Now you're becoming Greek experts. Can I go back? I'm going to the very, very beginning here. Can we make our own translation? I will stop for a moment because I want to share a lot. I hope that we will have also time for questions and answers. Okay. There are many people, including some pastors, who are really faithful to God. God used them in the ministry. But they never had an opportunity to go and to study biblical languages. And sometimes they become discouraged when they hear all these things. And they say to me, so it means I cannot understand the Bible without knowing biblical languages. No, you can. You can. Of course. More you know languages, it's more helpful to you. Are you still with me? But that means that you cannot do very, very good Bible interpretation without biblical languages. So how can you do it? It's very important every time when you study the Bible that you put in front of yourself several Bible versions. Because no Bible translator was able to catch every nuance what is in original language. And I know, please forgive me, I make an assumption I hope I'm not wrong, that all of you who are sitting here are believers if we speaking two languages. Am I correct? Everybody is here. Did you sometimes try to translate something from English into your language? And say, equivalent, are you still with me? And sometimes you will see the translator translating me here. I say one word, English word, and he's making the whole sentence in translation because there is no equivalent.
Yeah.
The same is with Bible translation. The same is problem. We are dealing with a language, Greek, that was used 2,000 years ago. I remember 2 times in my teaching career of 27 years. I had students, 2 students in different times. They came to me. Student comes to me and said, "Professor, I know, in order to be a theology student, I had to pass a Greek test." I said, "Yeah, sorry." And he said, "Hey, I just want to explain to you, I'm a Greek-speaking person. My ancestors are Greeks, and they sent me to the school in Greece. I finished the school in Greek language." I said, okay, you don't need to pass the test under one condition. You don't to come and to sit in my class. Because, hey, I'm intimidated. He's a Greek-speaking person, and I have to teach Greek, even though my language is based on Greek. But still, you learn from the books. And the person is so happy, leaves. I said, just take advanced Greek. You don't need to take elementary and intermediate Greek. After 2 weeks, the person comes back to me. "Sorry, professor, I have to change my classes. I have to go and to take elementary Greek." I said, "Why?" He said, "The Greek that I speak is completely different than the Greek of the Bible." This is the difficulty. And that's why the Bible translators are struggling how to translate certain words and certain things in the Bible. So more Bible translations you have in front of you, better help you will have in order to understand biblical text. So I want to suggest to you, I'm sorry I'm using everything what I can to share with you as a help to study the book of Revelation. What Bible translations to use? You have to understand that all the Bible translations, they fall into 3 different categories. 3 different categories. There are some Bible translations, they do not belong to any of those 3 categories, but you can put them between the 2. Are you still with me? They contain elements of both. So what is the first category of Bible translations? The first category is so-called formal translations or literal translations. It means that the Bible translators, and they were translating the biblical text, they try to be as literal as possible in translating it. I hope I make it very clear. Very, very, very literal. What are the literal Bible translations? King James Bible, of course. New American Standard Bible, Revised Standard Version, they're all literal. Can you help me a little bit? Can you help me now? What is the advantage of literal translation of the Bible? You can be sure that this is in the original text. You can be sure about it. It's very literal. But what is the problem? What's the problem? The problem is that those literal translations so many times do not make sense, for instance, in English language or in your language that you have. That does not make sense.
No sequence.
They are very difficult reading. That's why young people, they don't want to read King James Bible or New American Standard Bible. It's literal. It's not good English. Are you still with me? You can trust those translations, they're very literal. The second category of translation is made because of this first group. Modern Bible translators, they said, literal translations so many times create a problem, especially when you read the epistles of Apostle Paul. They're so difficult difficult to read. We want to make sense of that, so they make the so-called second category, it's called dynamic translations, or thought by thought translations. So it's not anymore the emphasis on literal translation of every word, but to express it even with more words so that people can understand really what the meaning was in the original. So what are the international version? Is one of them. New Revised Standard Version. A very popular Bible that's circulating throughout the world is English Standard Version, etc. I hope I'm making sense. Yeah. They're good translations, but you cannot trust them for exegetical purposes, because sometimes in Greek you have 3-4 words. In those Bible translations you have 7-8 words, because they're trying to make thought translation rather than the word translation. So when you are using the Bible translations in the same text, put 2 literal, put 2 dynamic, and compare them. If those three translations or 4, they agree together, you can really trust the meaning of the text in the best possible way. And the third category is called paraphrase. Unfortunately, I had to disappoint some of you. Paraphrases are not Bible translations. They're really spiritual interpretation of the Bible. People who are making paraphrases usually do not know biblical languages, but they wanted to make the biblical text relevant in our modern setting. For instance, the Bible message is such a Bible. But I hope what I just stated, it can mislead some of us. You say, oh, I have it in my library, I will take it out. No, I just want to tell you, so many times in the morning, when I have my devotional with God, I take paraphrase. I never intended to read that paraphrase to establish the meaning of the text, but simply for my devotional purposes. Yes. And Message Bible, it's fantastic. If you never read Message Bible, read, for instance, the book of Solomon of Ecclesiastes. Go and read. Go and read. You will fall in love with that Bible. Really, he got the points. But you cannot take it in order to get the correct interpretation of the text. I hope I did not say too much, but I hope that there was a need sometimes to clarify, because some of us, we really have our favorite Bible translation, it came from God. Everybody who uses another Bible translation is not from God. That's not true, friends. You have to understand, people are struggling how to understand ancient text in our modern setting that we I hope what I said, it makes some sense. And it will be a help to you as you are trying to understand the text. So let's go back here. Can we now make our own translation here? Can I ask you? You're not enthusiastic at all. Okay, let's go. He says, and he, Jesus, he sent and showed by means of symbol by his angel to his servant John. Should I do it once again? Yes. And he, Jesus, he sent, and the word semino is used, and showed or communicated or explained, in this case showed, those future events by means of signs by his angel to his servant John. So what is that the text is actually telling us? Let's move on. Let's move on. The text actually is telling us that when Jesus showed to John the future events, Jesus did not show to him those events as real as they will take place in history. How did Jesus do it? He used the symbolic language. Can I just use few practical examples. Can I use it? Jesus wanted to show to John that somewhere in the future, during the medieval period, there will be the union of religion and politics during the medieval period. That power will be primarily responsible for harming God's people and messing up with God's plan. And Jesus showed to John that what will happen. How did Jesus do it? He did not do a literal system, literal people. Are you still with me? He did not do it. He simply said to John, look there, and John saw a beast coming out of the sea. And the beast in the apocalyptic prophecy always meant a political power. Are you, my friends, with me? Mm-hmm. Or, oh boy, there's so much to be said. We saw Revelation chapter 12. John said, I saw a great sign in heaven, Samael. I saw a beautiful woman. In the Old Testament, so in the apocalyptic prophecy, a woman always is a symbol for God's people. Please, let me repeat one more time. The woman always stands as a symbol for God's people, never for anything else. In the Old Testament, it was symbol for Israel. In the New Testament, as a symbol for the church. So Jesus used those symbols to communicate to John. And John is telling us what Jesus showed to him. He put down in the writing in the way that he saw in the visions. He did not try to interpret it unless the angel provided the interpretation of some things that he saw in the vision. What he saw, he put down in writing. Does it make sense to you? So this is very, very important to keep in mind, which brings us to the conclusion. That's what we want now to understand. I will come to this. Okay. I want to present here some safeguards. I don't know if you all will agree, but this is a basic principle for the understanding of the book of Revelation. Please, I would like kindly to ask you at this moment, can you forget for a moment the book of Revelation and Daniel? Can we just forget it for a moment? Let's focus on the rest of the Bible. When you read the Bible in general, not Revelation and Daniel, okay? We put it aside. When you read the Bible, okay, other than Daniel Revelation, you have the text and you read it. There is one event, you read it. Whatever you read it. What is your primary understanding of the text? Is what you read literal or symbolic? I'm sorry, I don't know you. I don't know what you think. Maybe I should take one example. God said there was a man called Noah.
Yeah.
The iniquity of people was so terrible. You remember that?
Yeah, the story of Noah.
And God said to Noah, I'm going to bring a flood to destroy everything. How is that supposed to be understood? In a literal way or symbolic?
It's literal.
God met Moses and he said, you have to go to visit Pharaoh. You remember that? And there are those plagues in Egypt. How are we supposed to understand it? Symbolic? Is symbolic?
No.
So symbolic of what? Okay, can I be more specific?
Yeah.
Genesis chapter 1. God created the heaven and earth. He created in 6 days. There are some Christians today, and they see the theory of evolution very appealing to them. So, literal days, is it really to understand as it is in the text? Okay, how to speculate. Question, what is literal symbolic? Adam and is serpent that Satan used to deceive Adam and Eve, is it literal or symbolic? Is sin literal or symbolic?
It's real. It's real.
Is garden of Eden, is it literal or symbolic? You see the problems that we have? Once you start questioning what is in the Bible, and by the way, you have to understand that during the Middle Ages, the main method of the church interpreting the Bible was so-called allegory. Nothing in the Bible was literal. Everything is symbolic. And that was the way. Don't trust the Bible. The church has the authority over the Bible because what the church offers to you, it's literal. I'm sorry, I'm conservative Seventh-day Adventist. Conservative Christian. I take the Bible as it is, a historically reliable book, but not going to an extreme, okay? And the principle that I find is when we read the Bible in general, it presupposes the literal reading of the text that is in front of me. Unless the text indicates clearly, it must show clearly that symbolic meaning is intended. I know some of you will now ask the question, so how do you know that the text is symbolic? The text must show clearly. Can I just ask you a question? The Lord is my shepherd. Is that literal or symbolic? You don't imagine God who is taking care of sheep there in Judea. Am I correct? The word shepherd is used here as symbol. And David, for him, inspired by the Holy Spirit, used that symbol because that was his profession before he became a king. So the text must indicate clearly. Can I use another thing? You go to Isaiah chapter 5. Isaiah said, let me sing to you a prophecy. Let me make a song about my dear one. My dear one had a vineyard. He put the tower in the midst of the vineyard. He put a fence around the vineyard. And he expected good fruit, but something else came out. Is that literal or symbolic? It's symbolic. Because just few verses later, Isaiah explains that the vineyard is, it makes sense. The text indicates clearly that symbolic, but you as possible, because that's what the Bible is all about. However, when we come to the book of Revelation, the rule is completely opposite. When John the Revelator is telling us that Jesus shows something to him in the vision, what he saw and what he recorded calls for the figurative or symbolic interpretations, because this is exactly what John the Revelator stated in the Revelation 1:1. So when you have the text, you have to understand that that text is the expression. It was written down by John, what Jesus had shown to him in the vision, what he saw, he put down in the writing. So my question one more time is, so why is so much important that we take that word as a probably crucial word of the book of Revelation? You see, with that word in Revelation 1:1, the word semaido, we as Christians, we would struggle how really to understand the biblical text. Today, many Christians are divided among themselves. But can you imagine without any biblical evidences how much we would be lost? How do people usually do that? It was not many years ago, I was invited by one local church, about 200 to 300 people in that church. Once I had visited that church just in passing there. So I knew the pastor there, and he invited me, and he told me how the church got in serious problem by a very influential believer who had a lot of money. He was helping the people in the church. And finally, he accepted some interpretation by one person who wrote certain books about different way of interpreting the book of Revelation. Okay, I don't want to mention all details. So the pastor invited me to come to visit to his church. It was very hard for me to find a room in my calendar, but since I saw the great problem of the church, I decided to come and to visit the church. That person really who started all that mess in the church came to me to greet me, and I really understood he was very, very nice Christian, very nice Christian. I disagreed the way what he was doing, but he was a really genuine, sincere Christian. So I made about 5-6 presentations during the week. In the afternoon, I invited people if we have question and answers. I want people, if you have question, please, can you stand and speak openly? And everybody did it. Finally, that person raised a hand and he wanted to have a dialogue with me. I invited him front. I said, hey, we are not able to talk as Christians, that something is wrong. Please, can you come here front and let's talk. So we dialogued. It was very nice conversation, nothing problematic. But finally he became agitated, just for a moment, and he said, you know what the problem with you is? I said, what the problem is? He said, I agree everything what you said. It was fantastic. But there is one detail I disagree. I said, what is? He said, you say that everything what John saw was actually shown to him in symbol. I said, yeah, John is taking us clear. I disagree with that. I said, then probably you are better authority than John. Tell us really what John saw. He said, I believe that some things in the book of Revelation are literal and some are symbolic. I said, we agree with that. No. That's different what you are presenting. I believe what John saw in the vision, some things are literal, some things are symbolic. Okay, then I ask you a question. So please, help us to understand. When you read the text about what John saw in the vision, how do you decide what is literal and what is symbolic? Do you know what his response was? The Holy Spirit is teaching me. It means what fit my interpretation, it's literal. What doesn't fit, it's symbolic. So these are the issues that we are facing. But you as pastors, you have to decide for yourself the way that really you should go in order to understand it. So I would like us to give a time for some questions, answers. So I'm skipping here some things. You see, some symbols are clearly explained in the book. I don't know, I really should talk to people who organize these meetings. I'm willing to give my PowerPoints that is put on the web so that you have access to them. And maybe later, a little bit more study for yourself. Friends, I really want you not to be brainwashed. I want everything what you hear, that you study for yourself. It has to be your decision. It has to be a result of your persuasion and your study. So I hope you will try to find a way and to put these PowerPoints for you so that you can study for yourself. You see, some symbols are defined in the book, but the problem is that most of the symbols are not defined in the book. And this is what gives us the difficulty. These symbols are deserving our particular scrutiny. We have to understand something, that a common mistake and common problem of the people, I'm talking about us Christians today, regardless any denomination, my own church, including everybody, and including also myself, I'm also tempted with that. That so many times we go to the book of Revelation, take one symbol, and how to interpret that symbol? By newspapers. Or by our today's common understanding of the symbol, meaning of the symbol that we understand today. But you have to keep in mind that the book of Revelation was not written today. It was not written by Christians in this country, or United States, or my country in Croatia. It was written to whom? It was written to the Christians who lived in the Roman province of Asia. Remember those 7 churches. When the symbol was used, it was the symbol that had a certain meaning known to those Christians 2,000 years ago. So in order to have really the correct understanding of that symbol, we have to make an effort in order to understand the meaning of that symbol. And now you will say, but how can I find the meaning of the symbol? That's why at this moment you need tools. Please, I hope that following statement that I will make, I will communicate correctly to you. You see, we like to buy the books on Revelation that will provide us the interpretation of prophecies. No, friends, you are supposed to define the interpretation. But you must have a good symbol, a good tools in order to understand the meaning of the symbols. I would suggest to you, as you fill your library with the books, take those books that will help you in order to understand the meaning of the symbol. You see, my commentary in the Revelation, sorry, I never refer to my books, but at this moment, some of you ask me what is the difference between these 2 books, okay, that are there. The book, the bigger one, which is commentary, is intended to provide you with information how the greatest number of symbols in the book of Revelation were understood in the first century. To equip you with the meaning of the symbol. There are many books today on the market that really can help you with the understanding of the symbol, to understand what actually the symbol of the book of Revelation meant and how it was understood by the people of that time. So it is important to keep in mind that while many of the prophecies of Revelation refer to the future, yet they were communicated in the language of the time and the place of the inspired author rather than our own. Every time when you start the book of Revelation, you should ask yourself the question, how could the original recipients of the book of Revelation 2,000 years ago, how could they understand the meaning of that symbol? Not the understanding of the prophecy, how they understood the symbol, what that symbol actually meant to them. And I will talk about this a little bit more, okay? Now, maybe some of you are at this moment a little bit confused. And you say, well, I believe this meeting, I want really to do good things in order to interpret the book of Revelation. But how shall I do it? You see, my believers in my church, my Christians in my church, they ask me questions, and I went to many Bible commentaries. I couldn't find the clear explanation of particular symbol. How can I do it for myself? Friends, if you really want to get the understanding of symbols of the book of Revelation, or one particular symbol, you have to go to the source where that symbol was taken from. And I hope what we are saying now, and yesterday in my presentation that I had here, I showed to you how without that, it's almost impossible to understand the book of Revelation. And I just want to tell you, what I'm saying here, it's recognized by all denominations, by their scholars. Regarded, it goes beyond beliefs of one particular denomination. So, generally, it has been recognized that there are 4 major sources from which symbolism of the book of Revelation came from. Please, this is very important now, what I will say. The first one that we want now to understand, it's a crucial and important. Other 3, it's good to know. but it's not essential for the interpretation of the book of Revelation. But the first one, you will see why. This is what you're talking about. I hope that yesterday you could see the meaning of this. It has been recognized. It has been documented that the most of the symbols of the book of Revelation came from the Old Testament. By the way, it was in 1930s to 1950s, famous British Anglican scholar Henry Sweet, he wrote a commentary that is still in existence. It's old, but still found in the library of most of the biblical scholars. What he did with his commentary, it was unique. Because in the introduction to his commentary, I hope I'm not making a mistake, somewhere about 50 pages of the introduction. What he did, he went from Revelation 1:1 to Revelation 22:21, from the beginning to the end. Every verse by verse. And he showed the symbol of every verse of the book of Revelation, where it was taken, where it's found interpretation in the Old Testament. That was unique. And he concluded, see, the book of Revelation has 22 chapters that are divided into verses. If you put all those verses together and you study them, you have 404 verses. He concluded that of those 404 verses, 284 verses you can trace directly to the Old Testament. It was how many years ago? Between 80 to 90 years ago. Today, many more scholars, including my doctoral dissertation, show that at least several other verses of the book of Revelation, they can be traced in the Old Testament. It's recognized by scholarship in general. I want to put you on the same ground. Now I know it will come as a surprise to some of us. In my view, I can say with the confidence that about 85%, how much? 85% of all symbols of the book of Revelation, you can go to the Old Testament and find the understanding of that symbol. 85%. So it means three other sources are just about 10 to 15%, and even those sources, 10 to 15%, can be understood from the Old Testament. No wonder that many biblical scholars, interdenominational scholars, they reach the conclusion that it is almost impossible to understand the book of Revelation without understanding the Old Testament. And yesterday, I provided a summary. You could see it, how the essence of the book of Revelation as the gospel really is the conclusion of the theme that started in the Old Testament.
Sorry, sir.
By the way,
Sorry.
There's a question.
please, can I just finish?
Yeah, it's just on that one.
Yes.
That revelation never quotes or cites from the Old Testament.
So never have direct quotation.
Okay.
Never has, but there are strong allusions, verbal, conceptual, and I will use just few illustrations.
Okay.
Let's see verbal, for instance. Are you familiar with this concept? I'm sorry, I had to move a little bit to this area. Are you familiar with this concept? The Lamb, the root of David, sealing the faithful, 7 seals, the trumpets, 144,000 standing in the sea of glass, locusts from the abyss, the image of the beast, Sodom, Egypt, Babylon, drying up of Euphrates, the 7 last plagues, New Jerusalem, Gog and Magog. They're all the words that are taken from the Old Testament. I'm just giving you small amount of those words. Okay, let me stop here for a while. Maybe some of you have the question ready, so sorry if I'm doing that before you ask the question. Many people are asking, why is it so much important? You see, brothers and sisters, I want really us to understand that the book of Revelation, as the rest of the Bible, it's very practical. Those symbols are not abstract. They're very practical symbols. So why the symbols are taken from the Old Testament? For several reasons. Can I stop here for a while before I go to that answer? Have you ever thought how many times each one of us, every day, how many symbols we are using in our conversations, in our vocabulary, our terminology? Have you ever thought of that? Would you be surprised if I tell you that yesterday you used at least 100 symbols? But you see, the problem is, those symbols, they become a part of our terminology. We don't think about that. When you say, boy, I'm hungry like a wolf, what do you do? You see, my honey, what did you mean honey?
Yeah.
The honey that you put in your coffee or tea, is that what you're talking? No, you mean your wine. You don't even think.
Yeah.
And nobody thinks that you are meaning literal honey. You're referring to your wife.
Yeah.
You see, my daughter sings like a bird. You don't say that your daughter is a bird. That something is a problem with you, huh? You're using symbol to say how nice your daughter sings. You see, we don't think about that. The problem is at the time when the book of Revelation was written, I will just show you. The Jews, they established great number of symbols, and I will show to you just in a few moments. Those symbols were a part of their religious heritage. They used that symbol. Come on, friends. How many times you stand in front of your church? Huh? God is my shepherd. What congregation say? Amen. Yeah. Did anybody question to you, what do you mean God is shepherd? Everybody knows what the meaning of that. What is the symbol for these meetings? Grapes. Do you really mean grapes? So you become drunk, huh? Do you mean of that? We know what it means. It's the symbol that Jesus used. This is what we are talking about. By the way, can you just for a moment to give a thought? Which book of the Bible contains the most of symbols? Don't talk about Revelation and Daniel. Okay? Have you ever thought which book?
Ezekiel.
I thought that I had passwords in front of me. Come on.
Ezekiel.
No? It's small part of Ezekiel is symbolic. Sorry, I don't want to pause. You know. This is conversation. The book of Psalms. The book of Psalms contains the most of symbols. If I go to the Valley of Dhaka, everybody knew what it meant. That's why we translate it. Okay, the Valley of Dhaka. Okay. All the book is there. Why? Why the book of Psalms contains most of the symbols and more than any other book of the Bible? Why? Because it's written in poetry. You know, in songs, how many times the poetical language requires the use of symbols? In songs, by using symbols, you can express many things. If you try to preach in that way, people say you're crazy. But in songs, it's well fit. So, you know, the problem is, when we come to the book of Revelation, people say, why the book of Revelation is symbol? Because there is a reason for that. And we are presenting here the first reason for symbol. By the way, please, can you help me just? I want to engage in conversation. According to the book of Revelation, before Jesus comes, there will be apostate religious system. Apostate religious system that will control the minds of the people. Satan will use that system to prevent the realization of God's plan for this world. What is the name of that system in the book of Revelation? What is the name? Okay, maybe I'm so terrible person. Okay, let me say, it's called Babylon. Where do we have today in the world apostate religious system called Babylon? Where do you have it? There is no. That's why it's called Babylon. Telling us, if you want to understand what that system is about, what are you supposed to do? Go to the Old Testament and study ancient Babylon. That's the reason is. The main use of the symbol in the book of Revelation is to tell us that the things that happened in the past, something similar will happen in the future. That's why the events of the past are taken to describe the future. So to understand those events in the future, one study events in the past. That's the first thing. Second thing is, the same God who was with his people in ancient Babylon will be with his people at the time of the end time Babylon. Are you still with me? Yes. So as God was with his people, protected them, saved them, so the same God will be with his people at the time of the end in the same way as he was with Daniel and his friends. Does make sense? You see, the Bible is very practical book. The symbol is not abstract. It's not abstract. This reason is please, it's very important. Every symbol of the book of Revelation carries a story. I hope you could see yesterday, Pastor just mentioned the curse. You see, one word curse, you can make the whole sermon based on that. It's the whole story. It's not just one word as an abstract notion. Okay. So the first major source of the book of Revelation is the Old Testament. It's the Old Testament. This is how you start. My students, they know in the classroom. We come to new symbol of the book of Revelation. So I said, we have a problem, we have the symbol. If we want to understand the meaning of the symbol, what are we supposed to do? And my client, the classroom, they say, let's go to the Old Testament. And we go to the Old Testament, how suddenly everything becomes clear. Okay, can I just use a couple of illustrations? I want to make sense of that. In chapter 15, verse 1, what do we have in chapter 15, 16? 7 last plagues. We know that. Okay? Just at the time when the 7 last plagues are to be poured out on the inhabitants of this world. John says, and I saw those who did not receive the mark of the beast. They stand, please pay attention. They are standing where? In a sea of glass. And they are singing the song of Moses and the Lamb. Which Old Testament event is standing behind this scene? Should I repeat one more time? The context is 7 last plagues. And also those who did not receive the mark of the beast. Are you familiar about certain marks that were put somewhere in the Old Testament? It says they're standing at the sea of glass. Do you remember somebody sitting at the sea and singing the song of Moses? Now this group is singing the song of the Lamb. Which the Old Testament event is coming to mind?
Exodus.
If you think that way, the Old Testament Egyptian plagues. And when Israel, under Moses, came out of Egypt, what were they doing? standing at the sea. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And they are singing that song of victory. Do you see that? So in order to understand the 7 last plagues, what are you supposed to understand and to study? The Egyptian plagues. The whole scene is built on that. Or Revelation 13. It talks about that second beast. You remember the beast coming out of the earth? I'm not going to write interpretation. It's your task. Okay, you have the tools. It says that that beast will do something. Will create an image of the beast. Image of the beast. What is the problem with images? Images are not the real thing. Image is just an image. But says that this beast will breathe the breath of life into that image. And suddenly that image will become alive and speak. Any idea? Which the Old Testament scene lays in the background of this act to help us understand what is going on there? Do you remember in the Old Testament when God created Adam in his image? Adam was the image. What was the problem with the image? Adam was on the ground, lifeless. Was not alive. What did God do?
Breathe.
He breathed the breath of life, and suddenly Adam became a living being. You remember that? Telling us about what will happen at the time of the end. Something supernatural, imitating God's power. Did you see that?
No,
Okay,
it's
I'm
not
sorry.
relevant.
We can spend now the whole eternity going verse by verse with the book of Revelation, and you will see how the book of Revelation suddenly becomes alive. It becomes practical, close to the earth, to us, relevant to our daily living. So let me just take a few minutes just to respond. The second source is Jewish apocalyptic. What is Jewish apocalyptic? When the Jewish people came out of Babylonian exile, they realized that they had been in Babylonian exile by their own fault. They're breaking the laws of God. It was during that time the sect Hasidim was established, out of which the Pharisees came. And they said, we have to do something. We have to lead all Israel back to God, to be faithful to God. We don't want to allow the exile to repeat any longer. But people ask, but what about those prophecies that God made to Israel? Or they said, these prophecies will be fulfilled yet. How? Because God will defeat Rome. They applied it to Rome. God will defeat Rome, and God will make his nation to be powerful. It was during the time, like mushrooms, numerous writings appeared. Some of those writings have survived until our own time. We put them into 2 categories. We call them apocrypha. They are part of Roman Catholic Bible, accepted at the Council of Trent in the 16th century. But the rest are, I have at my home. I have 2 volumes, thick like this. Each volume has more than 1,000 pages, fonts 7, small fonts. What's about writings that they survived today? When you read those writings, they are all Jewish reinterpretation of prophecies that were not fulfilled during the Old Testament times. But it was fulfilled that God defeats Rome. So that's how they interpret. But the problem was, if in those writings they talk about Old Testament prophecies, how God will defeat Rome, what will happen to you if Romans, they catch your writing? You know what will happen to you.
Yeah.
So instead of saying Rome, what did they say? God will defeat the beast. And that beast persecutes God's wife. And the God's wife is Israel. Are you still with me? Certain symbolic language was established among the Jewish people. You see, when you read the book of Revelation, you have problem with symbolism, but Jewish people did not have, because that was symbolism they were very much familiar with. So today, for us, it's very, very much important, me as a scholar, to understand that symbolism in the first century of the Jewish people. Some symbols of the book of Revelation reflect really the symbol that's not found in the Bible, but it was found among the Jewish people. This reason you need good tools. Okay. The third main thing, we can say the source for symbolism of the book of Revelation is the everyday life in the pagan world, among whom actually the Jewish people and the early Christians actually they lived. A lot of that. I don't want now to spend too much time. If you go to any good writings, they will give you explanation there. And many, some symbols of the book of Revelation, they also reflect the teaching of Jesus and the teaching of the apostles in the New Testament. For instance, it is almost impossible to understand 7 seals without understanding chapter 24. Regarding the denomination that you are part of, let's recognized by everybody. How the 7 seals really reflect Jesus' teaching, Jesus' prophecy, apocalyptic prophecy that are recorded in Matthew 24. Okay, I would like to stop at this moment. Please, with your question, you will show to me what I was not effective in explaining better, and I try to shorten many of those things. So please, feel free. If there is anything, every question will be treated respectfully. Because if you don't ask a question here and now, tell me when or where. So that's the reason if you want